Saina, and you all are welcome to our history class. Children, we will be continuing with our first chapter, that is the French Revolution. Okay, we will begin with our first subtopic under this lesson. We will be talking about the French society. We have to go back in the 18th century. So our first topic that we are going to take up today in this class is French society during the late 18th century. What happened was, in the year 1774, Louis XVI, who belonged to the Bourbon family, ascended the throne of France. That is, became the King of France, ruler of France. And that time, he was just 20 years of age, only 20 years old. Louis XVI was married, and he was married to Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette was a princess. Yes, she belonged to Austria. She was not from France. She was an Austrian princess. Now, when Louis XVI became the ruler, ascended the throne of France, the France treasure was empty. The reason for this empty treasure was wars. Wars in which France was involved. Yes, long years of war. This wars drained out financial resources. Not only this was not only the reason. War was not only the reason. The other reason was lot of money was spent to maintain an extravagant court which was at the immense palace of Versailles. Okay, one more reason for financial crisis in France was France held 13 American colonies. Yes, France held 13 American colonies to gain independence. These 13 American colonies were under the British, which was also enemy of France. So, British was the common enemy of France and the American 13 colonies. Okay, now this war, they helped these 13 colonies to gain freedom, but this war added more than $1 billion to a debt that had already risen to more than 2 billion livres. Livres is the currency of France. Now, lenders, so their treasure was empty, so they have to lend money. So the lenders who gave the French state credit or loans, now these lenders began to charge 10% interest. Yes, 10% interest on loans. So they started charging now. The French government was obliged to spend an increasing percent of its budget on interest. They have to pay the interest, right? So they were obliged to pay the interest payments alone. Okay, but they wanted to meet their regular expenses such as cost of maintaining an army, or you can say the court, maintaining the court, and running government offices, or you can say universities. So the French society was forced to increase the taxes. Yeah, taxes which they collected from the people. But this measure was not enough, and the reason was only the members of the third estate paid tax. Not everyone paid tax. Only the members who belong to the third estate paid tax. Now you'll be wondering, what is this third estate? Oh, I'll explain it to you. Okay, now let us see how. See, the French society was divided into three estates. Like our society is divided. Yeah, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishyas. Same way, the French society was divided into three estates in the 18th century. The society of estates was the part of the feudal system in the Middle Age in France. The term old regime is used to describe the society and institutions in France before 1789. Now, the French society was divided into three estates. That is, the first estate, the second estate, and the third estate. Okay, it was divided into three estates. Clergy belonged to first estate. Now, who were this clergy? Clergy were the persons who were involved with special functions in the church. Example, the fathers, priests, nuns, bishops, they all were included in first estate, religious work. Okay, second estate. Second estate comprised of nobilities, the nobles, or you can say the aristocratic men and women belonged to the second estate. They were the members of the royal family, except for the king. King did not belong to this estate, but all nobles, they were the royal family members. And now comes the third estate, who paid the tax. I told you, tax was paid only by the third estate. Now the third estate was again divided into three groups. Okay, first group belonged to big businessmen. They were rich merchants, okay, court officials, then lawyers, and people with different professions. They belonged to this group. They were educated, learned people. Okay, they were rich also. Not rich like the nobles, but they were rich. Okay, then peasants and artisans were there in the second group, that is in the third estate, and small peasants who were landless laborers. Okay, small peasants, landless laborers, servants, they all belong to even the third estate, third group. Here we can see the learned man with different profession also belong to this third estate. Rich people were there, learned people were there, people who worked as servants, who worked as peasants, who did not own any land, were also the members of the third estate, and they were the ones who paid the tax. Children, these peasants made about 90% of the French population. So maximum population came from the third estate. They were the members of the third estate, but only a small members of, you can say, only small members or a few peasants, in the third estate. The population was 90%, but only a small population, they were the landowners. They owned their lands and they worked on their lands, on their farm. Okay, they owned land and they cultivated it. They were not working for others. Nearly about 60% of the land was owned by nobles. So nobles were rich. How? They were the landowners. 60% of the land was owned by the nobles. The church people, see, they were religious people. They were doing all religious work, but they were also landowners. And other rich members of the third estate, they all were rich people and they were the owners of the land. Okay, but the members of the first and the second estate enjoyed certain privileges. Yes, they enjoyed certain privileges. Even the rich section from the third estate did not have any privileges. I told you, in its third estate, even they were rich people, they were landowners, they were merchants, they were educated, belonging from different professions. But even they did not enjoy any privileges. But privileges were enjoyed only by the members of estate 1 and second estate, first estate and the second estate, that is the clergy and the nobility. They enjoyed privileges by birth. Why they enjoyed? Because they were born in the noble family, they were born in the royal family, they were born in the clergy family, and so they enjoyed all the privileges. The members of the first two estates never paid tax. They never paid tax. They were very rich, they owned lot of property, but they never paid tax. They were exempted from paying taxes. The nobles, they enjoyed feudal privileges. They enjoyed feudal dues. That is, that is the payment from the lower estate, which was collected in the form of cash. As a feudal tax, they used to take it from the third estate people in the form of cash or kind or any services, or either the third estate member used to work for him. They enjoy unique rights by birth. Right now, this feudal dues they extracted from the peasants. The peasants from the third estate were obliged, they were grateful to render services to the lords. They worked in their house, they worked in their fields, or they also served in the army. They also participated in building roads. Okay, they were happy to do all this work. The members of the third estate. Okay, children? Now let us talk about those who belong to the first estate. Yes, the church people. Look at the monitor. Okay, the church people. The people who were associated with the religious work. Okay, they also extracted taxes from the peasants, from the members of the third estate. Okay, this tax was called as tithes. Okay, it was called as tithe. This tax was, they paid in the form, the peasants paid in the form of agricultural produce. To whom they paid? To the church people. Okay, to the clergy. 1/10 of the agricultural produce was given to the church as tax by the peasant. Whatever they produced, they gave it, the 1/10 portion was given to the church as a tax. So all the members of the third estate had to pay tax to the state. This included tithe. Tithe, that is a direct tax, was paid to the state. So they have to pay to the church, they have to pay to the state as a direct tax, and a number of indirect taxes the third estate members had to pay, like on the consumption of using of everyday articles like tobacco, like salt, everything was taxed. Okay, so they were paying number of tax to the government, to the church people, to the nobles, to the state, and also indirect taxes. So we saw that all the burden of tax was on the third estate. They were the ones who paid all tax, and the members of the first two estates, they were exempted from the payment of tax. Right, children? So I'm sure You all understood the French society, the first estate, second estate and the third estate. Okay, do read the lesson. We will stop over here and we will continue in the next class. Till then, goodbye. Thank you.